Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Tommy Alderman. My wife and I have a YouTube channel, Alderman Farms. We're out of Brookhaven, Mississippi. You almost can't get here from there, but we were so glad to get here because it was 97 degrees with a heat index of 115 when we left. And so it's been real pleasant. And we're also tickled to know that we're bringing some of the cool weather back with us. We're going to have a little cool snap at home. Once upon a time, this thing worked. It just worked. There we go. Once upon a time, though, I spent right at 20 years in local law enforcement, and I was a chartered member of the state of Louisiana's Critical Incident Stress Debriefing Team, which means that we responded to officer-involved shootings or horrible, any type of horrific disaster where people's emotional ability to cope with those things was overwhelmed. And there's a lot of training available to the military and to law enforcement about how to deal with such things. But trauma can happen anywhere, to anybody at any time. And there's not a lot of training available to civilians about how to respond to traumatic events. Once upon a time, we had a 140-pound Anatolian shepherd named Duke. When he was a puppy, I guess I'm not holding my mouth right. Hello? There we go. I made that as a joke when he was a puppy, and it was kind of prophetic because on December the 9th, 2016, he tried to kill me. He tried to eat my face. There's a lot of details. I don't have time, especially because this is a 30-minute presentation, and it takes 2 minutes to make this thing click every time.
Can I send it to the computer and make it again?
Huh?
Can I send it to the computer and do it for you?
If you want to read the details of what happened that day, you can go to aldermanfarms.net/blog, and you'll have to scroll down through one to get to it. So I've only written 2 blogs since December the 9th, 2016. But there's a blog titled Tommy Survives a Vicious Dog Attack or something like that details, are you looking for dehydration or are you for trauma? Good. The details of what happened that day and immediately following can be found there. Here's a warning. The next slide contains images of my face after I received medical treatment. So if you don't like to see those things, shield your face, and I'll let you know when that's over with, okay? 3, 2, 1. I'm counting down, and this thing ain't gonna work. There it is. Yeah. So we don't know how many stitches it took because it was continual stitching mostly, and I kept asking the doctor because there was bragging rights on the line within the family. My oldest son was the leader up until this happened. And he just said, I don't know how to answer that because there was several layers of stitches. This stuff on the right side of my face right here severed the nerves. He bit all the way through my cheek in 3 places. The right side of my lip is still numb these years later. And so my 19-year-old son had to shoot the dog off of me while he was attacking me. Using my .40 caliber Glock, shot him 3 times, hit him all 3 times. It took 3 rounds to put him down. He was intent on destroying me. Okay, as a reward, we're safe now. As a reward, here's a picture of a pig butt wagging its tail. As the philosopher said, I like pig butts and I cannot lie. That was, what was her name?
Pet.
Pet, yeah, we called her Pet. And every time I said her name, she was in my lap, and every time I said her name, she would wag her tail like that. So that's just a reward for having to look at that horrid mess. All right. One of those shots that the son shot to shoot at the dog, we didn't know this till the next day, went through my pants leg. It was interesting. He said it seemed to me when I said shoot him now, the first shot was instant. But in that nanosecond, he said to himself, as a 19-year-old with no training, he said to himself, I'm about to shoot my own father in the leg, but that will not kill him. This dog will, and he shot. And again, we didn't know until the next day that had happened. There's the bullet. We found it, and you can make and notice a denim fiber embedded in the bullet. We found all 3 rounds. So that was my trauma. So we're going to talk to you about why we were able to come out of that basically unscathed, at least for a few years, which is, I have an updated slide in this program because I had to revisit some part of this 2 years ago, or 2 years after the fact. Let's talk for a minute about the difference between cumulative stress and critical incident stress. What happened to me was a critical incident or a high stress event. Cumulative stress is stress that builds up or accumulates over time. Stress of everyday life, work-related stress, relationship issues, frustrating situations, major life changes, new job, moving. Cumulative stress can be positive. Stress is associated with positive things, a promotion, a new house. Still, there's stress involved with moving and all that kind of stuff. It can be made worse by lack of exercise, poor eating habits, poor sleep habits. You handle cumulative stress by regular exercise, and these are ways to help mitigate it. Regular, honest communication with your spouse, your parents, your peers. Healthy eating, plenty of water, and a healthy amount of sleep or rest. What is a critical incident, also referred to as a high stress event? I like this definition, if I can ever get it to show. Now this just makes no sense.
Well, those are two, but over this way, Tony. I think we need to be further out, because it usually works pretty close.
Okay, I'm trying to point it at it, but if I point it this way, it works. Okay, whatever. A critical incident or a high stress event can be defined as any event that has a stressful impact sufficient enough to overwhelm the usually effective coping skills of an individual or group. You can't, anybody who wants to provide a finite list of things that qualify as a critical incident is mistaken. Because what may be a critical incident for you may not be for me, and vice versa. A critical incident is any event that has a stressful impact that's sufficient enough. Some of you are feverishly taking notes. Feel free to do that, but I'm going to show you how to get the PDF that has all this in it for free at the end of this course, okay? And he happily closed his book. Critical incidents are abrupt, powerful events that fall outside the range of ordinary human experiences. And these events can have a strong emotional impact even on the most experienced among us. I need to remember to point this at you and it works. This is very important. Failure to effectively deal with cumulative stress will worsen the effects of critical incident stress. So if you live a high stress life and you're not dealing with it properly, you're not resting, you're not exercising, things like that, and you come up against a critical incident, it's going to be tougher on you, on your body, and on your mind, and on your emotions. I lied. Oh, did it do it? Look, I did it too fast. All right, I took a couple of slides out of here because of the shortness of the presentation, but it had pictures of the brain and arrows drawn to certain parts of the brain with big long words associated with them. And I don't talk a whole lot about those slides. I just point out that this stuff is not myth. It's not fairy tales. There are things that happen in your brain chemically when you experience a traumatic event. And they produce certain things that you have no control over, such as high stress event amnesia. During a high stress event, the brain changes the way that it records events. Seemingly important facts are totally left out because the brain perceives them to be unimportant to survival. All that matters to the brain during the course of a high stress event is surviving. And it jettisons anything that it determines is not key to that. Here's another thing that happens in your brain that you have no control over. A disturbance of memory defined as the product of fabricated distorted or misinterpreted memories about oneself or the world, listen, without conscious intention to deceive. This is very important as you watch the nightly news. Accounts given immediately following a critical incident might very well differ from accounts given after some time has passed. So if you're watching the nightly news, I train my family and my children from my years of law enforcement to discount when the news comes on. Let me ask you this. How many times does the news come on about a story about a mass shooting somewhere, and the initial reports describe multiple shooters, and it turns out to only be one? Folks, nobody's lying. Nobody's making anything up. This is happening. Their brains are playing tricks on them. So parents, if your children are ever involved in a traumatic event, don't take as gospel their first account of what happened until they have an opportunity to assimilate what happened and to think back. After my traumatic event, I had things in my mind, I can't remember specifically, I should have thought about this, but there were things that I thought had happened that did not actually happen. And my family, say again?
Can I interject?
Yes.
As a person in law enforcement,
Come here, so I can
as
get
a
you.
person in law enforcement as you were, right?
Yeah.
One of the most unreliable witnesses, okay, is
Somebody who's just come through a trauma.
or somebody who actually witnessed it, right? They always mess up the details. So when you're in police investigations and you go to talk to the people that are involved in the crime or whatever, those people give out bad information, not on purpose, but because the event was happening and they're trying to consume all that information.
That's right.
And that's why they say some of the worst witnesses are the people that actually witnessed it, right? Right on the spot, because they always kind of mess up the details.
And even worse than that are the ones who were involved. And so I get, when bad things happen, especially involving law enforcement, and I'm here to tell you, bad things happen with law enforcement. They do. I'm not pie in the sky. But my family and friends who know of my training will sometimes ask me very shortly after it happened, what do you think? Give me your opinion about this. And I'm like, I'm not ready to give you my opinion about this. It's too close. And the details have not had a chance to develop, and the myth has not had a chance to get separated from what really happened.
I've seen it where they've had a whole room full of people kind of like this, and then they've set it up where someone would run through and snatch a purse, right? And then they would talk about that actual event, and they couldn't get the colors of the shirt right, they couldn't get any of the descriptions right on, and it happened right there. So I just wanted to put
Right,
that
I
in.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good. And the reason why is because those people who were in there were shocked
Right.
by the insertion of that event that they weren't expecting. Remember, something they weren't expecting. Their heart rates went up. Their brains performed physical changes. And their survival had nothing to do with the color of that guy's shirt. So the brain just threw that away.
That's right.
So the main thing I want you to remember from this is when somebody tells you a story who's been in a traumatic event and that story changes, that's to be expected. That's normal because they're experiencing confabulation, or the previous slide, high stress amnesia. They're not making it up necessarily. I guess I want to leave room for that necessarily, and they're not necessarily intending to deceive.
I didn't see this side before with my friend. She lost her husband overnight. And then he spoke up and wasn't couldn't breathe, his gas, his heart stopped.
Yeah.
And he said, he was mad at her. She doesn't really remember much about like after the night.
Yeah.
And here it is 8 months later, she still doesn't.
People talk about blocking. Well, they blocked it out.
Right.
Well, that's fairly. I guess I can see that, but they blocked it out. Describes it to me. That has the sound of an intentional act. High stress amnesia is unintentional, and I think I heard you say she wants to remember. Yeah, and so, but you can't help it. It's your brain. Your brain is making decisions without your input. Okay, very important. Examples of critical incidents, also referred to high stress events. Now again, I will never publish a finite list. But these are just some examples to get your mind thinking. Serious accidents, oops. This thing is whipping my tail. Serious accidents, machinery, automobile, animal attacks, hello? Criminal assaults, burglaries, sudden death of a loved one, especially in their presence, natural disasters. But listen, anything else that meets our definition of a critical incident, which again is, maybe if I stand on one foot. No, that's not it. If I stick my tongue out. Remember, a critical incident or high stress event can be defined as any event that has a stressful impact sufficient enough to overwhelm the usually effective coping skills of an individual or group. Critical incidents are abrupt, powerful events that fall outside the range of ordinary human experiences, or based on Doug's example, expectations. I need to add that to that slide. That fall outside the scope of human experiences or expectations. Because nobody in that scenario had an expectation that that purse snatching was going to happen. So that happened. Yes, sir.
So just to make sure I got this right, it would be, a good example would be like somebody who, say, had a phobia of bees or something. If a bee flew across their face, they...
Could be. It could be. Let me give you an example to set your mind free from limiting what can be a critical incident. There was, and I learned this in one of our training classes when I was initially being trained in law enforcement. There was a man, a detective, I don't remember what state he was in. He saw a Pomeranian dog run into the street and get hit by a car. And 3 days later, he took his own life. That sounds pretty silly, right? Until you know that he had a child who was hit by a car running into the road chasing a Pomeranian. Okay? And it was too much. It was too much. Here's another thing. Who's old enough to remember baby Jessica? It fell in the well, right? Happy ending, remember? They got her out. She made it. Do you remember the iconic photograph of the firefighter that is on the front of all the magazines and all that, holding that baby? Tremendous victory. When the Oklahoma City bombing happened, that firefighter committed suicide. Because it all came flooding back. It all came. So it's so important to make sure that you process every event that it happens. I heard a trainer one time talk about how if you look at a series of critical incidents in your life as a locomotive, a train, you know, in between the cars, they've got bumpers, right? That keep the cars from piling up on each other. And he described those bumpers as proper processing of each of the critical incidents. And if you do, then when you hit a wall one day, because you've processed all of those, it prevents the major. He said without those, though, all those train cars just, in the instance of that firefighter, that Oklahoma thing, just boom, it was it. Yes, ma'am?
You're just totally touched, you just blew my mind. You're like totally touching on something that could be key for suicide prevention.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Where has this been?
You know where it's been? It's been in training for law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, and military. Which is why I'm doing this. Because when my dog ate my face, it occurred to me, nobody knows about this in civilian life. And trauma can happen on the homestead, including broken ribs and getting run over by a bush hog. And, you know, I mean, that trauma can happen.
Run over by a bush hog.
Yeah, it happens.
You won't like that one.
It happens.
You forgot the tongue.
5 minutes left? We're going to have to go into the break.
You're a slow talker.
All right, people react different. Well, some people get interrupted too, and they, which was a
value added interruption.
It was value added. It really was. People react differently. 1/3 people experience little to no trauma following a critical incident. Approximately 1/3 experience moderate trauma. Approximately 1/3 experience severe trauma. Listen, any of the three is normal. Why do they react differently? Personal coping styles are different. Prior exposure to high stress events. degree of intensity of loss, additional learned information afterwards, or balance of life, meaning the amount of cumulative, normative everyday stress that they have in their lives. Mitigating critical incident stress. Training is the first step, and that's what we're doing today. Diffusing within hours, which is basically law enforcement agents or critical incident diffusers will go to the scene of a traumatic event within hours. And basically diffusing is nothing more than reminding the participants of what they learned in training. Very, very simple. Debriefing is a little more complicated, complex, if necessary. One-on-one crisis intervention, if necessary, would be the next step. Family crisis intervention, if necessary. And then follow-up and referral to professionals, if necessary. The thing I want to point out to you is you notice that the first two do not have if necessary. The last four do, which means, thankfully, a lot of times the last four can be deemed unnecessary. If training happens and reminding about training happens immediately following an event.
And debriefing can be just talking about
Right.
Well, it's a little more than that, but that's the diffusing would be part of that. Debriefing is a little bit more formal thing. Training is key. Knowledge is power. Knowing what to expect can go a long way toward mitigating the effects of critical incident stress. And I love the story of the power of the battle dump. You're going to remember this story. Law enforcement, high tactical teams, spec ops in the military. They're trained that in one of the ways your body can react in a high stress event is your bowels can involuntarily evacuate themselves. You can poop if you don't want to even, without even knowing it. And so TAC teams and law enforcement, spec ops guys, before they go out on a high stress event, like a high risk warrant or something like that, they are trained to go to the bathroom. They're trained to go defecate. Sometimes, and forgive me for being a little gross, but they sometimes use laxatives to clear their bowels before they get put in that high stress thing. Now I want you to imagine a scenario. We've got two officers. One officer is a young rookie who missed that day of training or something. He didn't know about the bowels evacuating. And you've got a veteran guy who knew about it, but he showed up late and he didn't have time to go to the bathroom. Okay? So these two officers together go out on this high stress warrant thing, and sure enough, in the heat of the gunfire, they have a shootout. Both of them defecate. They both of their bowels cleared in their pants. Okay? I want you to think about the differing reaction between those two officers. The veteran officer is going to go, "Ah, sorry guys, give me a break. My bad," right? How do you think that young officer is going to react?
He's gonna flip out.
He's going to flip out, and he's going to ask himself, "What is wrong with me?"
He has weak nerve.
He's going to think, "I'm weak." He's going to quit. He's certainly going to get off of the TAC team. He's going to be so embarrassed and ashamed.
And the veteran guy did it too.
But here's the thing. All of the differing of those reactions is due to one thing. Training. Knowledge. Knowledge is power. So that's what I'm here today for and going to have to do in the next 45 seconds, it seems. Here's what I want you to remember. The next couple of slides, I think, are most important. One of them is this. Everybody reacts differently. Everybody reacts differently. Never judge another person's reactions by how you think you might react. Think how stupid the people who witnessed that officer when they found out why. That officer lost a toddler a couple of years before. Never judge anybody's reaction because you don't know how you're going to react. And it's unfair to base their reaction on your input. So, rule number one. These are the other two things. Three things. The first one is everybody reacts differently. Don't judge somebody else. And if you don't remember anything else out of this, and by the way, again, at the end, I'll show you how to get the PDF of all of this for free. Any reaction, including no reaction at all, is a normal reaction. I aggravated my 19-year-old son to the point where he finally had to tell me, Dad, stop. Asking him, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? My 19-year-old son that had to shoot the dog off of me. He's like, Dad, I'm fine. He had no reaction. He had no reaction. Now that's also no guarantee that he is going to not have any reaction the next time something bad happens. No guarantee. But that day he had no reaction. And guess what? I wanted to make that not normal. I had to remind myself, no reaction is normal too. Number two, you are a normal person having a normal reaction to an abnormal event. It's the event that is abnormal, not you. Okay? I don't care how crazy your responses get. Now, listen to me. 9 months later, if you're still having weird behaviors, weird thoughts, you're still eating everything that you can get your hands on 9 months later, or not eating at all, or whatever, it may be time to talk to somebody. But immediately and within days and even up to a month or two, weird sleep patterns, things that are different, it's okay. You're normal. You're not crazy. Okay? Let's see what I got time to talk about here. Common reactions. Cognitive mental reactions. You know what? I'm almost out of time, so the PDF's available. I want you to get it. Rather than me going over all these lists of reactions, let me tell you this. I said for 9 months. Let me tell you what happened to me in 2019. So this happened in December 2016. And so...
Is it really?
Yeah, it's been that long.
5 years?
Yeah, it's been that long. It's crazy. So, 2017 was a pretty calm year for us at Alderman Farms. 2018 was pretty calm. 2019, we started having some things happen in our lives. We had a family member who suffered a violent attack from a human. Patty's mother went on hospice care and stayed with us. And over a period of a few months, we thought we had lost her. Thought she was gone any minute, and then she would rally. And so we were experiencing the roller coaster that's involved with that. I had some things in my full-time job that just were unexpected and crazy. Some extreme problems developing. And there were 2 or 3 other things, I can't even remember what they were now, but the cumulative stress of those big things happening overwhelmed me. I woke Patty up one night with chest pain so bad we went to the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack. I started trembling, just for no reason. I just would be standing there trembling like this, and I'm like, what is up? So went to the doctor and talked it through with him, and he said, Tommy, he said, your neuroreceptors are fried. Because of he said, I'm convinced your neurotransmitters are fried as a result of what happened to you at the end of 2016. He said, I think we need to do a course of medication, not permanent, about a year, we'll see, and to give your neurotransmitters a chance to heal. And I said, man, whatever. At that point, I'm like, whatever, because I can't do this. And he did. He put me on a low dose of something to allow my neuros. I never felt doped up, none of that. Immediately, when I started taking it, the tremors went away. I was able to think clearly or whatever, and I took it for 11 months. And at the end of 11 months, I told him, I said, I think I'm ready to see. He said, yeah. He said, it was one of those things, I think I could just stop it. I don't remember. Maybe I had to wean off. And I was fine. My neurotransmitters had healed and all that. So the point of that is, and I think I put a slide in here, if I can get to it in time.